When you have an undefeated 15-0 record, including 8 wicked submissions and 5 one-way tickets straight to the Dead Sea, that's the same kind of warning they put on cigarette packs. Smoking can kill you. Since making his promotional debut in 2020, Ilia Topuria has been the primary supplier of brutal knockouts in the UFC featherweight division and is now the reigning king at 145 pounds. And when you consider his terrifying knockout ratio in recent years, it's wild to remember that this Spanish-Georgian dynamo started as a wrestler and jiu-jitsu practitioner. But the real question is, what sparked his transformation from a grappler into a cold-blooded assassin who cracks skulls and leaves his opponents frozen like Elsa? Let's take a deep dive into Topuria's path to the top of the UFC's food chain and discover why he's the most terrifying athlete in the featherweight division. Ilia Topuria's path from the wrestling mats to becoming a dominant MMA fighter was almost pure coincidence. At just 7 years old, Ilia was learning the art of Greco-Roman wrestling in Georgia. But everything changed after his family moved to Alicante, Spain when he was 15. Ilia and his brother were searching for a wrestling gym to continue their training, but instead, they stumbled upon the climbing club MMA gym. And then, instead of just sticking to grappling, El Matador embraced the world of mixed martial arts, learning striking, submissions, and all the tools that turned him into the well-rounded fighter we see today. The Spanish-Georgian made his MMA debut on April 4th, 2015. The unlucky opponent had no idea that he was facing a future UFC star and was quickly subjected to an inverted airtight triangle choke. El Matador got comfortable utilizing submissions as his primary weapon and went on a killing spree by cutting off the oxygen supplies to his next 4 opponents. The undefeated run grabbed the Cage Warriors' attention, and they presented Topuria with the opportunity to seize the crown in the bantamweight division. On June 16, 2018, the Georgian submission wizard was matched against Brian Boulan, a Belgian prospect with a 7-1 record at the time. Topuria didn't waste time with appetizers and went straight to the main course, dragging the adversary down faster than an anchor dropping to the ocean floor. Boulan attempted to return to his feet, but Ilia issued him an infamous airline ticket with Georgian Airlines. After a few scrambles, El Matador grabbed the bull by the horns and cut off the oxygen supply. The opponent was given the option to tap or nap, but sadly, he chose the second option and went to sleep early that night. However, this victory was a bittersweet moment for the Spanish-Georgian, as he was ineligible to win the title due to missing weight before the bout. Looking from today's perspective, it didn't even matter. El Matador had a larger fish to fry under the name UFC. By November 15, 2019, 8 unlucky fellas tasted the bitterness of defeat at the hands of the Spanish-Georgian prospect. The UFC matchmakers could not ignore such talent, so they signed Topuria up for the organization. On October 11, 2020, Ilia made his promotional debut on short notice against Youssef Zalal. Despite the limited preparation time, he ragdolled his opponent for 3 rounds, giving the judges an easy night in deciding who the dominant force was in that octagon. This performance set the stage for an even tougher test, a showdown with Damon Jackson, a submission artist who doesn't like leaving his fate in the hands of the judges. Jackson entered the fight with a solid 18-3 record, fresh off a flawless victory over Mirsad Bektic that earned him a Performance of the Night bonus. Facing such a seasoned veteran with a bag full of slick submissions, it seemed like the UFC was throwing the young Georgian to the wolves. Little did they know he's the kind of fighter you throw to the wolves, and he comes back leading the pack. Fully aware that grappling with Damon could be a risky gamble, Ilia switched gears and opted to showcase his boxing prowess instead. It took only a few minutes for Jackson to realize he was walking into a storm he wasn't ready for. Topuria closed the distance and unleashed a ballistic missile that sent Jackson crashing to the canvas. The referee jumped in, saving Jackson from a one-way trip to the ER, leaving the American dazed and confused, unsure of what had just hit him. That knockout wasn't just another victory. It was a turning point in Ilia Topuria's career. From that moment on, Ilia knew he had fallen in love with delivering knockouts. He wasn't just a submission specialist anymore, he had evolved into a truly terrifying knockout artist. At just 23 years old, Ilia Topuria was transforming into one of the most dangerous and well-rounded fighters in the UFC, and this was only the beginning. On July 10th, 2021, the heavy-hitting Georgian found himself across the cage from the submission wizard Ryan Hall, a high-level BJJ black belt infamous for his lethal leg locks. Hall had already made his mark on The Ultimate Fighter 22, where coaches Conor McGregor and Uriah Faber watched as two of Hall's opponents crumbled under his jiu-jitsu, tapping out to avoid severe damage. Going to the ground with Ryan Hall was like walking into a viper's den. One wrong move and it was all over. But Topuria came prepared. For the first time, he truly lived up to his nickname, El Matador, executing a perfect strategy. Whenever Hall tried to entangle his legs, Topuria skillfully evaded the submission traps and fired back with brutal strikes. In one of these exchanges, the Spanish-Georgian phenom unleashed a barrage of bombs, and the referee jumped in to prevent Ryan from leaving the arena on a stretcher. Ryan Hall, who boasted an 8-1 record before stepping in with Topuria, looked like a newcomer. Let's not forget that Hall once made BJ Penn tap with a heel hook, proving his BJJ was really high level. But when Ilia started launching his rockets, Hall's black belt seemed to lose its color real fast. Ilia Topuria had been plowing through opponents like a tank, bulldozing his way up the ranks with barely any resistance. But his chin faced its biggest test on March 19, 2022, when he stepped into the Octagon with Jai Herbert. Making his lightweight debut, Topuria was up against a dangerous striker, with 9 of his 12 wins coming by knockout. But the real challenge was Herbert's height and reach advantage. Rather than taking the fight to his comfort zone, El Matador chose to exchange dynamites in the center of the cage. But then, Herbert landed a head kick straight out of Cro Cop's playbook early in the first round, nearly turning Topuria's lights out. Realizing he was no longer the uncontested leader of the striking department, Topuria quickly shifted gears, relying on his wrestling to regain control. Herbert soon got a taste of gravity shock treatment and was sent down to the deck right away. Back on their feet, Herbert tagged El Matador with more shots, leaving Topuria wobbling yet again. In the final moments of the first round, Herbert fired off a torpedo-like knee, landing flush. But Topuria didn't even blink. The second round told a different tale. Determined to take over, Ilia stalked Herbert like Freddy Krueger. He then ambushed his prey and pulled the trigger, sending the Englishman into dreamland. This jaw-dropping performance earned Topuria his first performance of the night bonus, but definitely not his last. El Matador stepped back into the Octagon on December 10th, 2022 to take on Bryce Mitchell, an undefeated 15-0 prospect and BJJ black belt fresh off a major win against Edson Barboza. The first round was competitive, but Topuria clearly had the upper hand in the striking exchanges. Realizing he was outgunned on the feet, Bryce shot for a takedown, but taking down and submitting Ilia was about as easy as invading Russia in the dead of winter. By the second round, Topuria was in full control, landing a textbook boxing combination that sent Mitchell crashing to the canvas. Bryce fought through the barrage and got back to his feet, but exhaustion had set in. He attempted another takedown, only to be quickly reversed. Topuria then unleashed ground and pound strikes before locking in an arm triangle choke. Once it was secured, it was only a matter of time before the high-level black belt had to tap and surrender. With 9 submission wins to his name, Bryce Mitchell was forced to concede his first professional loss and be beaten at his own game. Next on Topuria's hit list was Josh Emmett, a heavy-handed slugger with a PhD in violence. Although the American promised some resistance, Ilia turned him into a training dummy, hitting at will and breaking him down piece by piece. The Spanish-Georgian fighter dominated Emmett so thoroughly, the judges might as well have clocked out early. As this one-sided pounding was coming to its closure, Emmett's face looked like a Halloween mask, and Ilia Topuria was declared victorious. This flawless performance granted El Matador his golden ticket to the title shot. However, winning the featherweight belt was a rugged mountain to climb, and on top of that mountain was the featherweight king, Alexander Volkanovski. Volk had been effortlessly mowing down his opponents, and aside from Islam, no one on the UFC roster seemed capable of even coming close to beating him. Since his UFC debut in November 2016, Volk had remained undefeated at featherweight. But this time, he was facing a different kind of beast, hungry to take his crown. Volk clearly did his homework, knowing that Topuria's only real vulnerability had been to kicks. Sure enough, he opened the fight by testing Ilia's defense with sharp leg kicks. The Georgian wasn't fazed though. He took the center of the octagon, keeping Volk on the back foot with his hands high. While Volk attempted to pierce through Topuria's guard with a variety of strikes, El Matador played defense like the Alessandro Nesta of MMA. The difference in power became clear when Ilia slammed a leg kick midway through the round, making Volk feel the sting immediately. Topuria then went upstairs, launching a powerful 1-2 combo followed by another thunderous low kick. Ilia remained the aggressor, tagging Volk again with a clean boxing combination. Although the first round had its moments of back and forth, the second round was a whole different story. Ilia steered the foe to a dead end and decided to show him why you never bring a knife to a gunfight. The wounded bull resisted, but when Topuria unleashed his heavy artillery with bad intentions, it was GG well played. The UFC featherweight division has a new sheriff in town, and his name is Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is the most terrifying featherweight on the planet because he combines raw knockout power with a crafty submission game, making him a horrible match for anyone. He can dominate wherever the fight goes, from clinch and wrestling to crafting submissions on the floor and knocking opponents out senselessly on the feet. El Matador boxes like a sniper, strangles like a python, and is only getting better at his game. Judging by his well-rounded skills and the fact that he is just entering his prime at 27, it's hard to see anyone stopping him anytime soon. And what do you fight fans think about this? Do you believe Topuria has all the tools to become the greatest featherweight of all time? Leave your thoughts in the comments and make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this.